Good morning, Dave Mayer. You're with us this morning. How's life in the East Coast?
It's great. It's cold.
Oh, hang on. I don't hear. Just a minute. I got to get set up. Hello.
It's great. It's cold, but it's nice.
Great.
Yeah,
Nice to see you.
good to see you too.
Well, see a few newer faces, maybe that I haven't seen before, just to do station identification. This is Robert Beatty. This is Robert Beatty. This takes itself to be Robert Beatty. This is temporarily Robert Beatty. It sits here in Portland, Oregon, and this is a gathering of the Portland Insight Meditation community. And my pal Jim Dalton is here riding shotgun. And here we are, following the way of the Buddha 2,600 years later. And I have a nice little poem for us this morning.
Recording?
Recording, thank you. The endless record.
Recording in progress.
All right. This is a poem by Monica Hall. I had a dream of an easy life. And maybe just to get this piece out of the way in case there's anxiety about it, we had a fire on Saturday morning at PIMC, and it was a serious fire. The trash cans burned and the fence, and the soffit on the building at the top started to burn. But the fire department got there and it went out, and it was caused by me with oily rags, with stain, rags with stain in them. I was staining doors on Friday night. It took 12 hours for those oily rags in a trash can to spontaneously combust. Spontaneous combustion is a real thing, and I'm now totally convinced. But all is well. I'll be talking to the PGE today to get the power reinstated, and an electrical company, electricians, to get it set up down into the box again. And Mish is prepared to start working on the fence immediately as soon as we get the okay from the insurance company. The fire inspector fellow, the arson inspector fellow, told me to wait until the insurance company gives the okay to clean up the debris because they may want to look at it. But there doesn't need to be much of an inspection because we know who did it. And so the poem, all is well on that front. I had a dream of an easy life. A life where I loved college, made lifelong friends, impressed all my professors, graduated with honors, ceremony, cap and gown, teary pride family. A life like a straight line, smooth, sharp, direct, forward, up. A life where I didn't feel betrayed or heartbroken or a deep, unquenchable ache. A pain so great I chose a hospital as the last resort. A life of epic romance, of ravenous passion and fascinating connection. A life like a party, myself the life. A life of ease, success, and adoration. A life that preserved my virginal innocence, my sweet ignorance. A life without struggle, regret, or disappointment. A life without lostness, confusion, and quiet desperation. A life without loneliness, hopelessness, and self-doubt. A life without suffering, fear, or shame. A life of perfect harmony and happily ever after. I mourn this fantasy, this imaginary life, this fake life, this safe life, this meaningless life, this pointless, faithless life. What good would it be or do for me or for you? I thank this imperfect, chaotic, and magical life. I rejoice in its apparent cruelty. In its roughness, I celebrate its mystery. For it's mine alone. It has created me, the one. Cheers to you, my flawed and flailing, my passionate, my ailing, complicated, messy, winding, tangled life. I salute you. I thank this imperfect, chaotic, and magical life. I rejoice in its apparent cruelty. In its roughness, I celebrate its mystery. For it is mine alone. It has created me, the one. Cheers to you, my flawed and flailing, my passionate, my ailing, complicated, messy, winding, tangled life. I salute you. Well, that says a lot, doesn't it? So, my friends, my dear Dharma friends, people who are called to do the very unusual thing of stopping, of turning inward, let's notice that the body is alive. And what do we notice? What do you notice? We can do all kinds of fancy instructions and sort of complicated meditations, but it is alive. It is life itself. Frequently when I lead a meditation, guide a meditation, you'll notice I basically say the same thing again and again. Notice that there's life in your hands. There's life in the feet. Where else is there life? The face is very alive. Somewhere in the body there may be discomfort. This is the path of welcoming everything. Or at least being open to everything. Somewhere in the body is relatively cool, relatively warm. And while we can't directly observe awareness, it would be like the eye observing itself, but we can know tacitly that awareness is here. Where does that come from? How do you do that? Nobody has the least idea how we do that. But it exists. It started sometime after conception. A sperm and an egg came together in optimal circumstances, and somewhere consciousness enters the scene. And the Buddha's way of awakening is all about training consciousness, training, creating, cultivating. Cultivating mindfulness, cultivating concentration. And so we can come home to in-breathing and out-breathing. And of course, there's also the wandering mind. The thoughts, the memories, the plans, the 5 hindrances, the moods, the emotions. And so we join together. We can remind ourselves of the refuge in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. In being awake in the Buddha, in the way things actually are, the Dharma, and in the community of practice. For we don't practice in a vacuum. And using this in-breathing and out-breathing that we feel and know in the chest and abdomen or at the nostrils, let us fall silent. Let us practice in awakeness. There is no predicting what the mind will do, or for that matter, what the world around us will do. The mind might be calm and quiet this morning, or it could be uproarious, up in uproar. We could sit here in a sense of deep self-love and gratitude and appreciation, or there could be storms of self-deprecation or attack, shame. But no matter what the weather, we have a clarity of intention. I intend to stay awake. I intend to know what's happening. There are countless ways to be distracted. There are magazines to read and all kinds of interesting stuff on the phone. There's the fire hose of email incoming. There's the worrying about something. There's going over old conversations or planning a new one. What a relief to have a time every day, now, when it's really okay to do nothing, to achieve in the usual sense nothing. For it to be enough to just sit and breathe. Each breath has a beginning. It rises to fullness. It declines and vanishes. As the mind quiets, we notice that there's an increasing pause between breaths. There's the beginning, the rising to fullness, the transition from in to out. And the out has its beginning and ending, and then sometimes there's a pause. In that pause, we can simply be present, noticing awareness present. Or we could gently open awareness in the hands. Quietly abide in the aliveness of the hands until the next breath breathes itself. Some wanderings of the mind are very brief. Even a tenth of a second or less. Others can be any length. A minute, 2 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, a few days. What's important and remarkable is that in the midst of a wandering mind, mindfulness bursts out. It's like spontaneous combustion. Out of nowhere. When the causes and conditions are accurate. When my teacher Anagarika Munindra spoke about the Dharma, he often said, he would always get kind of excited. The flame broke out in India. the flame of consciousness and awareness burst out in India and spread everywhere. Spontaneous. Now, Siddhartha had done 7 years of very intensive training. But when we sit here and the mind wanders, see if in fact it's true. It wakes up on its own. We create the conditions, and then there's awareness of the hands. There's awareness of the feet, or there can be. There's awareness of impatience, of liking or disliking. And we weave the threads of mindfulness and love and compassion together. Our very sitting here is an act of love. Our willingness to bear and be present with whatever occurs is an act of compassion. This sets the course of our life toward a destiny rather than a fate. So please let us really embrace this present moment. I aspire to love and accept myself exactly as I am in this moment. When I'm hurting, no matter how I'm hurting, I intend to hold myself in sweet compassion. Gentle, merciful compassion. And we are not alone in this world. We travel with actually billions of other humans. Billions. And countless billions of other beings. May all these beings share in the merits of our practice. May the people on every side of every polarity share in the merits of our practice. All the Ukrainians, all the Russians, all Europeans, all Congolese. All people of all gender identifications, all national identifications. Those who are dying now, and those who are being born. The Democrats and the Republicans and everything in between. It's pretty easy to lose our way in this life, to get caught up in greed, hatred, and delusion, to fall into ideologies, to take sides. Pretty normal, actually, normative. So let us, at least in this moment, be persons of goodwill toward all. And beginning, of course, with oneself. How would it be to sweep through this body with awareness and with love? May all beings everywhere share in the merits of our practice. So, dear friends, announcements, my favorite thing. I have a fantasy of what I'm going to be doing today. I know as soon as we finish, I'm going to call the insurance company and then call PGE and then call the electrician and marshal the energies to get the building fixed. I have some retreats scheduled, residential retreats. There's one at Hollyhock and one at Brighton Bush in May and June. The link is open for registering for Hollyhock, and if you want to attend, I would say sign up soon because there's a lot of people who've been hungering for retreats. So, and it's limited to 26 people, which I like anyway. I don't like them much bigger than that. And that's with my colleague Don McEachern helping teach, do interviews. So let me orient here. What else? Oh, yes, the 1st of February. My God, that's soon. That's Tuesday, next week, a week from Tuesday. You are invited to participate in the discussion at PIMC of diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. And we're having a meeting that night. I don't know if there's an announcement on the website yet. I've been speaking of it ad nauseum here. Important meeting, I think, I'm sure. We'll have Kat presenting the results of the research that we did into what the PIMC community thinks about and is interested in the way of diversity. So, please save that night. And here's anyway, I don't need to frame it. If you had an inheritance from your great uncle yesterday when they died, this would be a great moment to make a contribution to PIMC. I don't know. I'll find out soon what our deductible is, but the fire is going to cost a bunch. So if you'd like to have the joy, if you can do it with the joy of a small child feeding a hungry duck, and you'd like to send a special contribution for the fire, that'd be great. You just never know what's coming down the pipe, do you? I was exhausted, but I felt so good about myself and about the project moving along and getting close to completion, and the doors stained, and then you wake up the next morning and the trash cans are on fire. Who knew? Who could have known? Nobody. It's all a surprise. So there are lots of teachings happening at PIMC. I encourage you to go to the website and take a look. That's all I want to say about that this morning. So, dear friends, thanks for coming this morning. I'm always buoyed up by the company. Michael, I'm just calling on you out of the blue.
You asked for a poem this morning, Robert?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm not sure what's on people's hearts, but this is the one that came. It's a short 3-part piece, and it's called The Measure of What We Know. I took an armful of gladiolas and put them in vases all over the house. They were closed when I did this. I liked them that way. Edges of color wrapped in green, long stems arcing into space. Like us, they're all gesture in the beginning, articulating unique directions, pointing where they want to go. And then they bloom and fade and die, and all those directions stay the same, moving through eternity. Who knows what those flowers will be? Later, I looked out the window and saw storm clouds and rainbows stretched over the sea. It's the prisms of raindrops refracting light that make the rainbows beneath the clouds visible. And so it's through the tears of rain we see the colors of the world. People call the storm clouds dukkha, the pain that's woven into life, the suffering without which we can't know God. Or maybe it's love we can't know without suffering. Or maybe it's anything at all. Maybe the measure of what we know depends on what we let ourselves feel.
Whoa. Thank you, Michael.
You're welcome.
I knew it was a good idea. So, friends, what have you on your heart that you'd like to share, if anything?
It's Kat. I just want to ask Michael, where can we find your poetry? Not just here. I mean, not just where else can ha, I'm done talking.
That's very sweet of you to ask. I don't have it published yet, but I'm working on that now. So hopefully by the end of the summer. Thanks for asking.
Michael, is your music published anywhere? Available for streaming?
That is published, but it's not available yet. So hopefully that'll be available too. There's a couple of records that need to be printed. Thanks for asking, Dave.
I think there's a little indication of desire. Not to put pressure on you.
This is a tough group to feel pressure in, let me tell you.
Yeah. Thanks, Michael.
Thank you, Robert.
Good morning, it's Francine.
Hello, Francine.
I have to add a bit of levity to the fire situation. I was on the listserv, so I knew on Saturday it had happened and all was well. It was limited. And then when you played the video yesterday, I went full tilt Catholic Old Testament on it and saw it as the burning bush.
Okay.
And there it was. I think in the Old Testament, I'll use help on this if anybody wants to chime in. Wasn't that a moment of reckoning or enlightenment? It was a new, it was the news. It was as though the good news had finally been revealed. And the more I looked at that video, that's all I could see.
I love that interpretation. That's great.
Yeah, that was fun. Yeah, thank you.
I always carry a knife. I have this lovely Leatherman knife. It's got a titanium case on it, and I can open the blade with one hand, and it's got great pliers. And I lost one of these 2 years ago. Jennifer got me this one for Christmas the next year. And I miss it. It's on my hip, and I use it every day. They found it in the fire. I was sure it was in the garden. I was 100% sure. I actually rented a metal detector and checked the garden and checked the garden and checked the garden. Well, so I'm sure I was using it with the to break down boxes for recycling. And it appeared yesterday. Gregory had it. He brought it to me in a cloth that someone had found that, and so I thought that was an interesting aspect of the fire. So we have the burning bush, and we have the lost lamb it returns to the fold. Strange stuff.
Robert, to answer Francine's question, the story of the burning bush was the voice of God speaking to Moses and telling Moses that he was designated to go into Egypt to lead the Israelis out of their enslavement. And Moses said, "But who am I? I'm nobody." And God said, well, I've appointed you, go do it. It's basically the story, but it's where the voice of God came from.
Wow. Well, there's one commandment that came from it for me, which is don't throw oily rags in a lump into the trash. That's a rule now.
Robert, I think you need to check Kat's comment in the chat.
What did she say? Oh, all I got to do is lead us out of Egypt. Great. You watch.
You do it every morning.
Robert.
You do it every morning.
Yeah. Someone else spoke. Joe.
That was me speaking over Dave. Sorry, Dave. I visited Ruth's website over the weekend and was really impressed and really enjoyed it. And I started to devour it like Dobby and stop myself. And I am slowly visiting and enjoying every part of it. And it's very, very nice. Mm-hmm. And thank you for whoever was responsible for putting that together and updating it, because it really helped me a lot and was wonderful to take a small piece and examine it and feel it. And especially the pictures were wonderful too. Had to slow myself down. One other thing, Robert, after retreat, I started reading a book about a person who was a contemporary of Ram Dass, and they made the comment of being mindful of which nostril you're breathing through.
Mm-hmm.
And since that time, I cannot help myself, but it's like I pay attention. It's like, which one is it? I'm primarily, I guess, a right nostril breather, but I can't stop doing that now that I've had that kind of thought in my head. I catch myself doing it all the time. And it's just kind of interesting that I've locked on to paying attention to that, like your shirt button's undone. And now I check it all the time. Just an interesting thing that my self has locked onto, is being mindful of that. I don't know why that's important, but it's interesting anyway.
The concern about which nostril one breathes through comes to us from yoga, from the Hindu tradition. And in insight meditation, one would treat that as one would any other obsessive thought, which is to notice it and let it go. It's not important in either way. It's like it could be, as you said, your shirt button being undone. It could be any number of things. And on my very first retreat, I became aware of a pressure in my forehead. And I wondered, well, I really thought, I hoped. What it meant was that I was going to have that was my third eye, and it was going to open. It was going to be very dramatic. And I was pretty obsessed with it for years. It was like, it would be there, and then I'd pay attention to it, and then it'd be really up front for a while, and then I'd forget about it. And it's been 50 years now, and nothing special has ever come of it. It's just a pressure in my forehead that I never know. Now I'm going to notice it a lot. It's right there now, but there's so many things like this, and we can get caught on them and make meaning of them. And sometimes it's a symptom of something. You've got pressure in your forehead, maybe check it out. But so to just notice the process of obsession with something, and then it fades away.
Just no different than in breathing and out breathing. It's just one little thing to pay attention
Exactly.
to. I understand. Thank you. All right.
But I really hoped it was. I even did a couple of workshops on psychic powers and opening the third eye, and because I was really, I was ready to become special like that.
All right. Well, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
And thank you, Michael. That was beautiful.
Robert, there's a question in the chat about hollyhock.
Oh, look. Thanks, David. Does someone mind sharing how they get to Hollyhock? For some reason, directions are unavailable in maps. You can fly or drive. Either way, it's a gorgeous journey. Hollyhock is on an island between Vancouver Island and the mainland. And it's in the Sea of Cortez, or Desolation Sound. It's called Desolation Sound because Captain Vancouver, I think it was trying to find the Northwest Passage. He was trying to get to China that way. And the currents are just horrendous through those channels. And he was desolate that they couldn't even use boats. They couldn't use rowboats and get through because it's a 7 to 10 knot current at Campbell River. It's really something else because it's the tides flowing around Vancouver Island. Anyway, you get there. There's several ways. You can drive. And if you drive from here, there's a ferry to Vancouver Island and then 2 ferries from Vancouver Island to Quadra to Cortez. You can fly in a float plane. You can fly from Seattle. I've never done it, but you can. You can fly into Campbell River, which is what I do. And then there's Hollyhock arranges, or they'll tell you how to do it. You take a bus, basically. And someone picks you up at the ferry landing. It's a trek. It takes it takes 2 days from Portland because of the ferry schedules. But it's a lovely trip, and the ferries are great. And so that's how you get to Hollyhock. Unless you have psychic powers, in which case you can just, drop yourself in there. I would do that myself, except you're not supposed to show your psychic powers when you have them. You'll be kicked out of the club. So I never do it that way.
Robert, there's also a water taxi from Campbell River.
That's true. You can, yep. That's
and
fun.
That cuts the travel time hugely because the 2 ferries are so time consuming.
Right.
But if anyone ever wants to come to Victoria, I could travel up to Cortez Island with them and go on the retreat. Might be fun.
Yeah.
Then you could see Victoria, which is nice.
Oh. So is that an invitation?
Yeah, sure. Let's make a plan.
Great. The water taxi is fun.
The water taxi is awesome. Once I took it when it was very stormy.
Yeah.
And it was incredibly frightening, but the driver seemed calm.
Yeah. There's a tremendous amount of industry up there. There's logging and there's mining and the way the workers get to and from home is with this water taxi. And it is this, it's not a huge boat. It can carry maybe 20 people, I think. But it's got so much power and it's so stable. It just gets out there and you fly along. It's an interesting thing. And they go out in all kinds of weather. I mean, really bad weather.
Yeah, it also cuts the trip from about 4 hours to 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Which is nice. Mm-hmm. Unless the journey is part of the journey.
Right.
Anyway, if anyone wants to come by Victoria, they can stay in our guest room and it'll be fun. Maybe I could meet people in real life.
Yeah. Brighton-Bush does not have registration open yet, but that'll come open soon. And that too is going to be limited to something like 26 people. So.
Robert, this is Pamela. Are there limitations in terms of vaccinations and boosters?
I think you have to be fully vaccinated and boosted to go to Hollyhock. Yeah.
Good. Okay.
Canada's, I know, I taught at Hollyhock a few months ago, and it was amazing to me. I landed in the airport, and I always stop. Anyway, I stopped at a Chinese restaurant for lunch. There's a great Chinese food right by the airport. And first thing, you walked in, and there was a barrier, and it said, "Show your vaccination certificate." You don't go in anywhere without one of those in Canada or in BC right now.
Great.
There's many places in the world that are less conflicted than we are about it.
About a lot of things.
Yeah.
Thanks.
And I guess since we're on that kind of topic, on the 5th of February, I'm going to vanish into vacation for 2 weeks. And I'm actually going to do it. I'm going to leave my computer at home and my iPad at home. I'm not going to do email. And I'm going to take a break from the 5th to the 19th. So the other PIMC teachers will be in this seat. And I hope you have a wonderful time. And I am intending to really relax. And the center will be much safer because there'll be no one to burn it down. Oh dear. So, anybody sitting with anything you'd like to share? Well, I think I'd like to sing our way home and get to the PGE people early this morning. So please join me. May all beings receive all blessings. Thank you so much for being here this morning. Bhavatu Sabe Mangalam. Bhavatu Sabe Mangalam. Bhavatu Sabe Mangalam. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Thank you, dear friends.
Thank you, Robert.
Good luck, Robert.
Thank you.
Have a great day, everyone.
Goodbye, friends on Facebook